What's up, guys? Helen here to talk about two provocative filmmakers who share a last name, a deeply twisted sense of humor, and a special place in my already crowded heart.
Rule of your little gate here. Here. There's your $4, you pathetic piece of shit.
That's right, the Coen Brothers, known for their edgy takes on classic Hollywood genres like film noirs and screwball comedies. They infuse traditional cinematic tropes with their own unique brand of brutal violence, sharp dialogue,
And you're studying?
All sorts of jolly stuff.
History?
Economics.
Same thing, isn't it? History, economics.
and an endless cast of weirdly compelling scumbags.
Thought you serve misfits here.
Yeah, Daddy, that's a Roger, but we don't sell alcohol.
The Coen Brothers' distinctive body of work always has a contemporary tone, even when they're harkening back to decades past. So you might have been surprised to hear that older brother Joel was adapting the classic Shakespearean tale whose title you can't say in a theater. And at first glance, it seems like a perplexing direction for a guy who cut his teeth in the likes of Blood Simple and Raising Arizona. So why is one half of this filmmaking duo bringing the most murdery medieval Scottish wannabe royal back to life? Examining the way the Coen brothers treat the protagonists in their own scripts might actually tell us a lot about why Joel connected with the story of Macbeth. Because if you take a closer look, this guy isn't all that different from a classic Coen brothers protagonist. So join us for this Wisecrack Edition on the Coen brothers, tragedy and/or comedy, and spoilers ahead for some Coen brothers films. Let's start out by reverse engineering your typical Coen brothers protagonist. In general, they're not terribly successful, at least by standard definitions. They're known to encounter trouble with the law, sometimes a lot of trouble. Often ineffectual, they find themselves subject to condescension,
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
verbal abuse,
You arrogant son of a...
You think you're the only writer that can give me that Barton Fink feeling? I got 20 writers under contract I can ask for a Fink type thing from!
and even rejection by their own rabbi.
What happened to the goy?
The goy? Who cares?
They're perpetually bewildered by the world around them,
I don't know which end is up. I'm not even sure how to react. I'm too confused.
and they're often flying by the seat of their pants while cosplaying competence.
This aggression will not stand, man.
What's more, Coen brothers' characters are often men with plans. Like Jerry's plot to have his wife kidnapped in Fargo for some money, a harebrained scheme that ultimately results in cinema's most creative use of a wood chipper. Or High's knuckled-headed plan to steal a baby from a wealthy furniture mogul.
You go right back up there and get me a toddler.
Or Brad Pitt's doomed plot and burn after reading to sell what he believes is classified information he stumbled upon. While the Coen brothers have no shortage of humor in their work,
I'm pretty sure of the date. Did I ask you to sit?
No, sir, but you struck me as a man who wouldn't want to waste a chair.
many of their characters function somewhat as tragic heroes in the ancient Greek mold. As scholar Richard Gilmore explains in his analysis of No Country for Old Men, in ancient Greece, tragedy was considered a source of wisdom as well as of entertainment. And the primary wisdom was avoid hubris, i.e. excessive pride. Greek tragedies prominently featured characters being punished for exhibiting hubris, usually by ancient gods. Many Coen brothers heroes suffer from hubris. Their characters have goals that, while not as grand as becoming king, are still vastly out of step with their actual abilities. In Barton Fink, the titular character thinks he can bring his deep stories about the common man to a notoriously shallow Hollywood. Inside Llewyn Davis chronicles a small-time folk singer who doesn't quite have the talent to back up his big dreams. In A Serious Man, Larry wants to learn the full truth about God and his master plan for the universe, a goal that not even the most gnarled of rabbis can claim to have achieved.
Be a good boy.
What all of these characters share, like many ancient Greek tragic heroes, is that sense of hubris in their approach to their goals, whether they're trying to learn deep religious truths or simply trying to acquire a baby. They often see themselves as competent, heroic characters on important heroes' journeys, the kinds that the Greek legends went on. But the Coens let their audience know, in no uncertain terms, that these protagonists are kinda just being punked. Importantly, the theme of hubris, far from being confined to Greek tragedies and Coen films, also permeates much of Shakespeare's work, especially, you guessed it, Macbeth. The play charts the downfall of an ambitious nobleman who wants to become king and is willing to do a lot of murder to make that happen. Even though his plot works, the consequences pile up, and Macbeth refuses to back down, and in the process loses his head. Like many Coen heroes, he's a man with a plan that he can't quite manage to see through. This makes it extremely fitting that Joel Coen gravitated towards this particular Shakespearean work. It's something of a medieval iteration of his own overarching thematic preoccupations. The link of man's hubris becoming his downfall, which we've charted from ancient Greece to Shakespeare to the Coen brothers, thus makes Macbeth seem all too Coen-y. That said, characters like High and Jerry and Llewellyn aren't Macbethian to a T. The Coen Brothers, for the most part, aren't just regurgitating Greek myths or Shakespearean downfalls, though they may find inspiration in them. They're doing something distinctly modern, taking the tragic hero in the vein of Macbeth and transforming him to suit our times. And they do so by invoking their Jewish heritage and sculpting many of their characters into some iteration of the Yiddish folk archetype, the Schlemiel. The Schlemiel, according to the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia, handles a situation in the worst possible manner or is dogged by an ill luck that is more or less due to his own ineptness. As scholar Ruth Weiss adds, the Schlemiel's misfortune is his character. It is not accidental, but essential. Importantly, Schlemiels have always had a hand in their own destruction. You know, like this guy.
Well, I was just merely trying to elevate small talk to medium talk. That's all I was doing.
Well, don't. My marriage is my business. My marriage is fine. It has nothing to do with you.
We vividly see this Schlemiel-like tendency in many Coen Brothers films, from Jerry's foolish kidnapping scheme to Llewellyn's harebrained theft. According to scholar Sanford Pinsker, the Schlemiel has long been a source of comic relief in the distinctive palette of Jewish humor. Probably since Byzantine Emperor and major jerk Justinian made anti-Semitism mainstream. As Pinsker explains, although powerless by conventional standards, Jews mastered the difficult arts of self-mockery, in part through the comic failures of the Schlemiel. Pinsker posits that this brand of humor was a powerful tool in the Jewish people's endless struggle for survival. Though the archetype wasn't popular outside of Jewish communities for most of its existence, Weiss writes, when America as a whole began to experience itself as a loser after World War II, and ever more insistently in the 1950s, the Schlemiel was lifted from his parochial setting into national prominence. Though some scholars see the heyday of peak Schlemiel being over, it still continued to permeate pop culture. Writing about Seinfeld in the 90s, scholar Carla Johnson explains the show's success in the context of the way it invokes the Schlemiel trope. She says, the point is that Jewish experience has come to mirror the frustrations of mainstream America, the shrinking opportunities, the stalling of the American dream. If that doesn't feel even more true today than it would have in the 90s, you might just be the owner of multiple Teslas. For their part, Coen Brothers protagonists are often quite stuck in their own stalled American dreams of achieving economic success or starting a family or launching a career. What's more, the Schlemielness of the Coen Brothers heroes facilitates the filmmakers' unique approach to melding comedy and tragedy. As Ronald Emmerich writes, citing Sheldon J. Hirschenau, using the Schlemiel creates an ironic perspective as well as a double vision, both comic and tragic. The protagonist's attempts to change their circumstances are typically much less grandiose than the likes of the plotting Macbeth. As a result, their missteps on their path can be rendered both amusing and kinda sad. Indeed, each Coen Brothers protagonist has aspects of both the tragic and the comic. Take their comedic film noir The Big Lebowski, whose protagonist is the epitome of the happy stoner. Still, throughout the film, he's constantly mistreated and emasculated, rendering him a bit tragic. What's more, his refusal to back down over the rug precipitates the death of his friend. His character flaw literally causes him great pain and misfortune. Classic Schlemiel move. Sad parts aside though, the film functions as a comedy because the dude accepts his status in life and doesn't care what others think. He's definitely not tortured, except for that tub scene of course. In contrast, one of their most tragic protagonists, Larry from A Serious Man, is unhappy with his lot in life. He has the very not humble goal of wanting to understand God and truth, and desperately wants to be taken seriously.
I've tried to be a serious man.
As a result, he has our sympathy and our pity, though his suffering does provide the occasional chuckle.
I seriously. That's what's going on.
Even so, the film functions basically as a tragedy. In this way, the Coen Brothers' use of the Schlemiel can be molded to suit both comic and tragic characters, so long as their lives are falling apart. By replacing the traditional Greek or Shakespearean hero with the Schlemiel, the Coens update their protagonists to better suit our time, a time when many of us feel pretty powerless. Which maybe also explains why a 74-year-old Larry David is still making a super popular and relevant comedy show. Evoking this old trope from Yiddish folklore also has the added benefit of facilitating their unique mix of farce and tragedy. But what do you guys think? Is Macbeth the natural next step for a guy like Joel Coen? Do Schlemiels make the perfect modern hero? Let us know in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support, and don't forget to check out our podcast. Hit that subscribe button like you're smoking a joint before Hebrew school, and don't forget to ring that bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.